As the world marks World Youth Skills Day on today, the spotlight turns to urgent need to equip young people, especially girls, with the tools to thrive in a rapidly evolving digital world. In South Africa, the gender gap in STEM remains a pressing challenge, particularly for girls from under-resourced communities. But schools like the Oprah Winfrey Leadership Academy for Girls are changing the narrative using holistic, future-focused education to empower the next generation of coders, engineers and innovators. For more on this, let's now welcome the head of the academics at the Oprah Winfrey Leadership Academy for Girls, Dumisani Tshabalala. Mr. Tshabalala, a very good afternoon to you and thank you so much for your time. So when you consider just the high youth unemployment and even the skills gap in this country, maybe take us through how you are changing the narrative at your academy, especially around equipping your young students with skills for employment and perhaps even entrepreneurship.
Spot on. Good afternoon. I do want to just start this conversation by talking briefly about the content of what we teach in schools. I think we should appreciate the fact that school subject content is a context through which specific skills are developed, taught, or learned. And so at the Oprah Winfrey School, we are very specific about the skill sets that we want kids to learn. And so when they come to us in grade 8, we begin unpacking those cognitive skills, that is critical thinking, deductive, making deductions and reasoning and so on and so forth. So the point I'm trying to make is that if we only pushing the school content as scribed in the policy documents, I think we're missing the point, and we are likely going to produce a kind of students that can only write predetermined and predictable exams. So I think it's very important for anyone in the education space to be conscious of the skills that sit behind the content. And so the point really is that school content should be seen as a transparent resource for developing or teaching specific cognitive skills.
And particularly if, just on your point in terms of teaching young children, especially girls, on critical thinking, you are talking also about holistic, future-focused education to empower the next generation of coders, engineers, and innovators. How does that look like, in a world that is dominated now by AI?
Yeah, I think what we're likely going to see with AI, we're going to see the gap between those that have and those that do not have becoming wider and wider, because the education system is just producing kids that are consuming the commodities, including the digital community. So we need to get into a position where we enable these girls, especially girls, to become active participants in the production of goods and knowledge. And so I do think that that's a very important point to make. And perhaps one can also talk about how do we do it at our school. And so for us, I think we must appreciate that school content calls for what is known as dead mock reality. So it's very important that when we teach, we bring real life problems to a classroom context where we give kids real projects, where they come up with real solutions. And I think that's where the kind of content we teach finds a foundation to sit on.
AI, while it does provide a lot of value, it's really not a substitute for your kind of good quality leadership as well as, mentorship. You calling it, of course, just the real life problems. Help us make sense of how we can, in school, help shape the focus on leadership and mentorship for young girls so that when they then go into the corporate world or even start their own businesses, they are able to appreciate, yes, there's value in AI, but also there is those human elements that are very pivotal to making successful businesses.
Spot on. And I think your question is related to what I described as real life problems. So, we've got a leadership program in our school, which is a very live leadership program that is not just about putting kids into positions of leadership. We put them into position where they lead something that will benefit the school. And so in so doing, they are forced to negotiate conflicts, resolve conflict, negotiate deals. And so they get to learn not just the AI scientific skills, but also the human aspect, where they must pull a group of students towards a particular direction. And so it's quite an important thing to find a balance so that you don't end up being purely academic, but you also can touch on the human aspects that, for me, is very important in pulling people towards a particular direction.
When you look at, the importance of this day, a lot of our young children, whilst they want to be innovative, are also quite disillusioned with just the what's happening globally, and also the amount of information that they are getting. How do you motivate them in terms of appreciating the space that they're in, and also the capabilities that they are able to do in terms of just being great at whatever task that they actually take on?
Yeah, I think if you talk about motivation, often we reduce it to a space where one can talk to people, and through talking to them, they will be motivated. That's one aspect. But I think what really gets people moving is for them to see themselves in other people. So we need more and more role models that don't go into spaces to preach or to motivate, but that just become, through them being, others can see themselves. I mean, we think we need to share more stories of success, particularly stories where people come from disadvantaged circumstances and they make it. And so for Oleg, we are very big about sharing our key stories, because we believe that other girls out there who may not necessarily get the opportunity to come to our school may also find within themselves that it is possible. If they dedicate themselves, they really try hard to do their best, it is possible. And I think when we talk about motivation, for me, those are the stories we must share, without saying, if you do this, you will. But we just share the stories, and people can see themselves in the stories, and they'll tell themselves to thrive and push harder.
Absolutely. Dumisani, thank you so much for your time. Really do appreciate it. Dumisani Tshabalala, the head of academics at the Oprah Winfrey Leadership Academy for Girls, speaking there to us about World Youth Skills Day, celebrated today.